Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Laughter for All podcast. This is comedian Nazareth, and we are episode 87. Thank you so much for watching us, and thank you so much for subscribing, and thank you for making us in the top, I think, 60 something in the stand up comedy podcast out of I don't know how many thousands. So praise God for that, and thank you guys. I hope that every podcast we do is able to help you, lift you up, encourage you, and today will be no difference. Also, we want to remind you that every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time, we have our Live with Naz show. Tonight's show will be episode number 286. We've been with you through the pandemic to bring you laughter and encouragement. So I'm too excited to just stop, and I want to introduce my guest. But I want you to know that this show is been sponsored by Imaha's Stable, Mediterranean delights for you and your family. If you're tired of the regular egg and bacon and all that breakfast, Imaha's Stable can bring you banana nut breads and cheese pies, meat pies, spinach pies, and so many other delicacies from the Holy Land that you can enjoy. So Maha Stable, and you can find them on Facebook and on Instagram under Maha Stable. Enough of that. Right now, I am so excited to introduce my guest. I'm so happy to have him. This guy's so busy. He has thousands and thousands of followers and people that love his podcast and his show. Ben Kirby is the creator of the viral social media sensation Preachers and Sneakers, where he caused an uproar across the globe after showing the values of what clothing preachers were wearing on stage, along with growing from zero to hundreds of thousands of followers in just few weeks. His work has been featured in the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Wall Street Journal, BuzzFeed, Fox News, Complex, and many more. He also hosts a popular podcast with the ultra creative name, the Preacher Sneakers Podcast. Please welcome my friend, Ben Kirby. Ben, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Naz, thanks for having me. Appreciate you
Oh,
giving me
yeah.
some time.
This is awesome. First of all, I learned you were a Marine. Thank you for your service. I
Absolutely.
know yesterday we had Memorial Day, and now I do a lot of events for our military in Germany and the US. I love what you get. Thank you for your heart. And I heard you have a baby, right? You
I
just
do.
had a
A
baby.
1 month old
1 month old. Okay. Boy or girl?
boy,
What did you name him?
Davis Dean Kirby.
Davis Dean Kerr. Would you let him be in the Marines when he grow up?
I think so. Yeah, I think depending on our landscape, our military landscape across the world, most likely. It's one of the more proud things I've done in my whole life, and so if he wants to follow my footsteps, that would be awesome.
And I heard that your wife is a better fisher person. I can't say fisherman, fisher human being than you, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, she's a better human being across the board, but she is a better fisher person. I would say we really like to fly fish, in our very limited spare time, and for whatever reason, she just crushes me every time, legitimately. And I grew up fishing, and she did not, and she destroys me in terms of how many fish she can catch compared to me. So that's like the one hobby we can sometimes find time for. But now that we have a 1 month old, that's probably on the back burner for a while.
N- Now, you were born in Louisiana, right?
I was, yeah, and raised.
And she's a better fisher. She fishes
I'm
better
not
than you.
saying I'm not proud of
That's
it
it.
by any
That's
means.
humiliating,
It's an
man.
insult to my family name for sure.
Yes, Ben Kirby is the founder of Preachers and Sneakers, which is a great, great podcast that kind of shows. Let's get to it, And by the way, I want you to know I wear New Balance 49.95 sneakers. That's the most expensive sneakers I've ever got. But tell us, what is Preachers and Sneakers? What is it about, and why did you start it? What were you frustrated to a point, or it was just like, okay, let's try this?
Uh, it's had a life of its own over the past 2 years. So what it is Preachers and Sneakers is kind of a network of social media accounts and a podcast that discusses the modern church's relationship to wealth and fame and social media and celebrities, all that kind of stuff. And 2 years ago, it started because I noticed a worship leader was wearing a pair of Yeezys sneakers that were reselling for about $800. and I was nobody. I had no platform or anything, and I just decided to make a couple of videos, basically saying, "Hey, did you know these sneakers were worth $800? Let me get on the payroll." And it was an elevation worship video, and I was making some
Yeah.
jokes to my. I had 300, maybe 400 personal Instagram followers at the time, and so I made some people laugh, and they responded well to it, and so I kept making those videos. And then that eventually turned into was me reposting famous pastors' photos of them preaching, and then putting the either the resale market price of what they were wearing or the retail price of what they were wearing right next to it. And whenever I did those two things, put those two basically opposite pictures together, it caused people to lose their minds. And so it going from zero to in 4 weeks, I had over 100,000 followers just doing that. And so this was 2 years ago, and now thankfully it's developed. I think it's advanced a little bit to where it's now a discussion piece about how we do church in the West here and the things that we care about and maybe care too much about.
Because you're right. I mean, when I started looking, some of these preachers were, like a suit for $3,800, a shirt for $1,200, shoes for 2-3 grand. I'm like, how can you? What if you have someone in the congregation that's like having a hard time putting food on the table, and they're attending a church where the pastor is dressed in this kind of expensive clothes? Now, are we judging? Yeah, we're judging, right? No, we're not judging. We're revealing the hypocrisy of it, right?
In some instances, if you drill down to each one of those situations, there could be a whole host of different factors at play. But the consistent fact is that if you choose to have a kind of ministry via social media, you do have to at least contend with the fact that the world is watching and people get to interpret what you wear and your message, how they're going to interpret it. And so I think it's wise to consider how you portray your image and your message, especially if you're preaching about a poor Jewish carpenter that got murdered on a cross and then buried in a borrowed tomb. And so, the individual situations can be different, but you're right. A lot of people, because I've talked with thousands of people about this, do feel like it's at least gross to be in a position where your ministry is funded from donations while also wearing really expensive clothing. But then the follow-on questions that inevitably people ask are like, well, what if it was a gift? What if he's got book deals and everything? And I'm no authority to say what's if it's wrong to wear an $800 belt. All I can say is that, hey, this belt is worth $800, and people around you feel a type of way about that. And somehow I was able to find a way to do it in a humorous way that maybe gave language to people that didn't have language for it before.
It's right. It's. I'm glad you are, because I always say comedians in the mainstream, the non-Christian market, they're the jesters of the culture. They're the ones who mock what's going on wrong and the stupidity of certain people doing stuff. As comedians, as Christian comics or comedians who perform, if we do that, we're gonna get killed. We're gonna get people like, "Oh, did you get that? Did you get like, okay, people attacking you, or some pastors? Did they ever call you? Let us know."
Yeah, only every day. I mean, I get critique about this all the time because, as you've probably experienced in Christian culture, if you ever question a thing, people immediately interpret that as an attack. When in fact, it's like if I mean, people don't know me that are listening to this podcast. I'm assuming I haven't been hurt by church. I don't want to see Christians look like clowns. I don't want to see the church go away or be insulted or seen as ineffective. Like, I want the church to flourish, but I also have, what basically caused the account to be created was I had questions about this, and I'm the type of person that really wants to encourage people to ask hard questions and not view it as an attack, but as a view. Sure, you can ask questions that are in bad faith, but if you ask tough questions in the hopes of furthering a thing or a people or a group or whatever, I think that's helpful, and it prevents this kind of whitewashed vanilla Christian existence where everybody's happy-go-lucky on the outside, but actually really hurting on the inside. And so, it's kind of a deep tangent to go down by way of sneakers, but that's basically what it's come to.
But I
I
mean,
guess to your second point, the question you asked about if pastors reached out to me, they did.
yeah.
They don't as much anymore. I talk with pastors a lot that usually want to discuss some of these things in terms of like improving their ministries or improving their social media presence, that kind of thing. But at first, there were a lot of guys that were mad because overnight they kind of got this new attention that they may have not asked for, even though they were public figures, and so they should expect it. But I had plenty of conversations. Some were very chill and understanding, and also saw some value in it, and then others were very angry and mean spirited and that kind of stuff.
What I mean, what's their excuse, Ben? What do they call? What is it saying? Oh, you should never put that because it's okay to wear. Were they justifying this?
Yeah, some were, you know, went into the whole gift spiel, and some of these guys are connected to really powerful, wealthy people, and so I believe that uh, some of the biggest pastors in the world are gifted really, really nice things. And they just, I think many couldn't understand why people were so mad if they were wearing something that was a gift, when in fact it's like, uh, even if it was a gift, it still communicates a message, even if it's an unfair message, and so you should at least consider that.
You know, I gotta be open because this is a real show. I gotta. People don't know that I was gifted a very nice sports car. I can never afford. I'm hardly can afford the insurance on it, and it was gifted. And the big fan said, "This is for you, Naz. I want you to have it." And I
That's a nice
can't
friend to
sell it.
have.
I'm not gonna sell it. I'm not gonna sell it. They don't want me. I don't want to sell it because it's a gift that was given to me. You know what? You know what the biggest problem with this car is the batteries die on me. The battery dies because I'm not move. I'm embarrassed to drive it. I'm really embarrassed. And when I drive it, just to get the engine going, I wear a hat and dark glasses. Now, for a pastor who said, "Well, it was a gift," don't wear it on stage. Don't show your congregation that's what it is. And for you, I mean, I really, my hat off to you that you're able to bring, because some of these pastors I know and I work with and I dealt, and I was from day one, I was like, I'm not judging, but Jesus didn't, Jesus brought to their attention of the religious people, hey, this is wrong, what you're doing is wrong. So my question to you, Ben, right now, when the media like the New Yorker or New York Times, I don't know, when they jumped to know more about it, was it because they want to mock Christians, or they kind of sense that there's something wrong?
They a pastoral scandal is one of the best things you could bite into as a media person. I think for mainstream media, it is just a gold mine in terms of uh, getting clicks, getting views, because there's a lot of people out there that assume hypocrisy within Christians. I mean, if we're honest about ourselves as Christians, we are hypocrites in one way or the other. I mean, we're all sinners, and
Right.
we have to fight against our sinful nature. That's one thing, but it is definitely elevated when you sign up for the benefits, the reach, the influence of having a massive global platform that includes influencing people's spiritual lives, but also their business lives and their buying habits, their consumerism, all that kind of stuff. And so they're interested. The mainstream media are interested because everybody's watching, and it's very easy to see that this is very like a cultural thing. This kind of hip, impressive, good-looking, good-speaking pastor, which in and of itself, I don't think is a bad thing. I just think it is very much I don't know. It sounds dramatic, but playing with fire a bit. I mean, you can see the ministries of some of these huge guys erode when they inevitably screw up something. And so, to me, that seems like an issue that we as Christians, the lay people, continue to watch happen. And at a certain point, I just got some part of me got fed up with like, is nobody else seeing this recurring cycle of insanity where we build these guys up as celebrities and then they fall, and now we have to basically answer for that as regular Christians. I think it's a bigger problem than people treat it. And, if I can get people to start asking questions about it, I think that's a net positive.
And you have the Marine heart. You went for it. A lot of people, I'm telling you, they chickened out. If I was not a
Oh, I hear from
comedian,
people all the time
yeah.
that basically message me saying, thanks for doing this, or thanks for the account, because I work at such and such church and could never say this, or I've always been scared to say this, or, it's 10 times worse than what it actually looks like, that kind of thing. So it's an interesting look into what's going on in our churches.
You're right because those are red flags. Whenever like when I look at pastors at your when you put them on your website, I want to encourage everyone to go to Instagram and go to preachers and sneakers and just look. You will get disgusted yourself. Those are red flags for that pastors because some of them fell and it's just I like when a pastor buys his wife a car for $250,000. I'm sorry, I don't have anywhere in the Bible to justify this. And even if I'm a brand new Christian, there's something inside of us or going, there's something wrong. Being a Christian, when you become a shepherd, you're gonna take care of the sheep. That's where you do. But then Sarah's asking, so where's the balance, I wonder, between caring too much about what others say and giving into the fear of man and not because people are going to judge no matter what?
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think?
I ask myself that all the time too, because you don't want to live in fear of people's opinions because that's a never ending cycle of anxiety right there. It's just caring about what everybody thinks all the time. That's definitely anxiety inducing. But I don't think, the other extreme is burying your head in the sand and not feeling compelled to question or point out anything. And I think that's a detriment as well because I mean, we hear stories all the time of people in power abusing that power, and without somebody speaking up or at least saying, "Hey, this seems weird," uh, that just goes on for years and years and years until it comes to a head. And so I want people to at least wrestle with that it doesn't have to be always judging people or always fearing of what people think, but also not just burying your head in the sand and saying these people are haters all the time. Like sometimes critique is rooted in truth. And I think if you have people around you that can speak into that, whether it's valid or a lie, that's super helpful. So it's hard to do it it's hard to do it alone because it's like this whole topic is very messy and imperfect, but I think it's worth talking about. You need people in your life that can speak into whether you care too much about the opinions of others or where they can encourage you to speak up about a thing. It is different for everybody. Like I don't love talking in terms of like moral relativity, but this is kind of a relative type topic. And so again, hear me, like I'm not the authority on, you know, if you can wear a $250 jacket or a $500 jacket, but I think that we would all be wise to consider how we portray our lives on social, and especially if we are teachers of the gospel and shepherds of people's spiritual lives, we should
Right.
definitely take that seriously.
You do. So why did you hide your person, like who you are, for a few months? I remember I wanted to have you for a long time, but you didn't reveal who you are. I didn't know who you are until
Uh,
uh, why
uh,
was that?
yeah, I did that for 2 years, and it's exhausting to do an anonymous existence. It along with the account, it varied. At first, I just the account blew up so fast and such an unexpected way that I didn't know what I was doing with it, and I didn't know where it was going or what the outcomes would be. And so, at the time, I was counseled to basically stay anonymous until we figured out what this was, because it,
Right.
along with everybody else, I was shocked that this thing could grow so fast. I didn't have a plan for it. I was just posting these pictures, trying to make people laugh. Um, and so after I kind of got secure in what I was doing and figured out, hey, there is some meaningful stuff here. It's also funny and it's also cool that it's growing. It turned into like a marketing thing a little bit, where it's like, oh, this guy is kind of like the Christian Banksy. He's like, uh, he's causing this huge stir and nobody knows if he's a pastor or if he's a regular idiot dude on Instagram. And so that was fun and cool for a while. And then eventually it just got, uh, exhausting. And 2 years later, uh, I was kind of fed up with dealing with the additional email addresses and fake names and all that kind of stuff. And like I wrote a book about trying to be authentic in everything. And I figured the best way to actually participate in the discussion would be to basically reveal who I was in public, reveal that I was, struggling with some of these things as well, and didn't have all the answers, but was trying to do my part to be real about who I was and, push for other people to do the same.
Now, when this thing blew up, Ben, how did your wife react? Was she like, "Hey, what? Don't even, you're getting yourself into something. I'm pregnant. I want to have a baby, and you're taking that. How long you been married first?
I've been married 7 years this month.
What does she think about all of this?
At the beginning, she's heard me. I'm the dreamer of the family, while she's the realist, and so she's heard me dream out loud about all sorts of dumb ideas. And she is kind enough to listen to me, but also wise enough to get me to maybe think about some of the realities of some of my dreams. And so when the thing started blowing up, she uh, basically counseled me to take it slow and to not get swept up in the idea that the New York Times wanted to talk to me. That I was like, she is very good at bringing me down to earth in a loving way in order to
Oh, that
preserve.
sounds like my wife.
Yeah, in
That's
order to
exactly like my wife.
not because she's a hater, because she can help me preserve my sanity a bit. And so, I'd already put her through the Marine Corps wife thing, traveling around the country, dealing with
Oh
deployments
yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. And so I've worn her down in terms of like we're probably not going to have a stable traditional life ever, I think. But 2 years later now, having written the book and have been at this for a while, she's encouraging and has been very, very helpful in keeping me from doing a lot of stupid things, saying stupid things, or reacting in a way that would be, you know, uh, like, this is an emotional topic and people can be really angry and can be really
Right.
insulting. And so as a dude, as a Marine, it's very hard to sit there and take that sometimes. But she has been very helpful to help me basically take a beat and consider what I say before I snap back at somebody. And so she's very encouraging. I think she's ready to maybe talk about something different than preachers literally
Yeah.
wearing sneakers. But I'm very grateful for her. And it's just like so lucky to have a wife that's like that.
Yes, when you're a dreamer like me, that's what happens. You need a wife that humbles you and brings you back to earth.
But it's
I
like, how
want
are
to
you going
get
to pay for that?
I'm gonna get you to the book, and I want to talk about this book because this book is gonna be your truly. I mean, it's if people this is could be a Bible study for men, a small group thing, because there's questions that you ask that really we need to answer as Christians, and some of so this is a book, and let me see. It's called, and this is available on Amazon. We'll talk about this at the end, but I want to be able to uh, ask you. You said several. Here's one of the questions it's talked about uh, in the book, and said, What are the questions that your book attacks that most people don't want to discuss, but is important for the church to flourish? What are
Yeah.
some of those questions?
Yeah. It was interesting to me that this account talking about sneakers could lead to some real kind of deep, heady church related questions. And so throughout the life of the account, I saw these recurring questions come up that I was asking myself and uh, was wrestling with. And so the book is based around the questions, things ranging from like, is it okay to get rich off of God? Because this very quickly turns into that discussion. It's like, man, like I want everybody to do well for themselves, but it seems like you're almost turning Christianity into a product. And is that okay? Does this relate to the money changers in the temple? Like, when is it too much? When is it turning, like, literally using Jesus for a profit, that kind of thing, in the context of a church? And so I wrestle with that question and get people to question about how we have basically turned our churches into a retail enterprise in a way, with like multiple different profit verticals and music licensing and commercial real estate and conference revenue, all that kind of stuff. And then I ask other questions, more self inward focusing, about, hey, are our social media posts causing others to envy our lives, or to feel anxiety, or to feel depression? Because a big part of that is at play here with the whole social media thing. And we as Christians for a long time just used social media as a tool and never considered how our vacation pics or whatever, our driving a sports car, could affect those that are viewing from the outside. And again, it's like, you don't want to be controlled by the opinions of randos online, but also you have to contend with the fact that social media does cause anxiety and depression in others. And as Christians, should you care about that? So I ask a range of questions about that, about celebrities, how we elevate guys and girls to celebrity status and kind of put them in a lose-lose situation where we put all this worth into them, and then if they screw it up, then we have to contend with that, all that kind of stuff. And then all throughout the book, I talk about the things I did wrong, the things I struggle with this whole topic. I try to do a lot of self critique, because if I was to just come at this topic to say, here's all the things we do wrong as at a church, and here are the things you should do better, it's like, well, that's also avoiding the plank in my own eye. And so I tried to be as humble as possible and try to be as gracious on both sides as possible. And so far it's helped people discuss some of those things that maybe we hadn't been discussing previously. And I think it's the response has been encouraging.
You sound a little apologetic, which you shouldn't, because from the response that you got right away, you knew that you hit an issue that people wanted this leader, you, to spearhead it, because we feel the same. Something that always bothered me, where I do a lot of mega churches, and some pastors have bodyguards, and they have like 20 people you have to get to speak to them, and then they're what do you call it? Of course, God forbid you say no to, or you say what are you doing is wrong, but they say, "Oh, listen, I was able to get these cars and these clothes from my book revenue." And you don't understand that when these people started and while they were growing, building a name for themselves, it was the sheep, the congregation was paying their salaries to allow them to write their books, which is wrong. You know what? Take your time off your own work and then write a book. You don't say, I'm writing a book, so I'm focusing on that. And then their congregation buys it. So you got to, 10,000 people buying the book, becomes a bestseller. Then they go, oh, well, I made all this money from book sales. I don't know. To me, it's just like,
I know but if in a vacuum, none of those things are inherently wrong, but collectively, like at a macro level, it at least is like, dude, what is this? Because it does seem like a self-licking ice cream cone, where it's like, hey, this system sounds pretty good to continue writing books, making bank, going to conferences, selling your books to all your buddies' churches. Like, it's a pretty nice, like, nested audience for your books. And so, like, again, I don't fault anyone for participating in commerce, for making a profit. Like, I started this account when I was getting my MBA here at SMU in Dallas. Like, I'm very much for people making a profit, for sure. But I question that in relation to God's church, because church has a specific purpose, and our body is not just like a social club or any other kind of motivational conference. Like, it is there to glorify God if you believe in God. And so it's not there to hawk stuff, and it's not there to build the personal brands of any one guy or girl. But to your point earlier about being apologetic, I've done nothing but think, study, and talk about this one topic with thousands of people for hours and hours a day. And I have gotten the range of responses in terms of people being really angry, really insulting, really encouraging, people's like actually considering faith again, atheists, thanking me for giving them, like, showing them that it's okay to question Christian leaders while also being a Christian, because that was the reason they had left the church, that kind of stuff. So I guess I lean towards wanting to be apologetic, just because it's a very sensitive topic, and it very easily can like turn itself into me being kind of an arrogant finger pointer. And I'm not that guy. Like, I don't want to be that
You're
guy.
not. No, you're
I think
not.
I want to be firm, and I want to be like, sometimes I feel like I'm crazy looking around thinking like, does nobody else see this? Like, it seems like this is an issue, or this guy's getting freaking loaded off of basically being a pastor.
Yeah.
That seems weird to me at a minimum. So sometimes I feel crazy. The thing that I'm very okay with finger pointing about is the prosperity gospel, because that to me is taking advantage of people in their time, most vulnerable time, often their most vulnerable time financially. And the guys that get rich off of doing that, I have very little patience for, and hope that they have to contend with that, because there's nothing. The word prosperity maybe exists in the Bible, but there is nothing that I've seen that leads me to believe that God actually transacts with us in a way that says, hey, if you have more faith or give more money or just believe more, you're going to actually have material wealth and health. because there's just too many people across the world that God equally loves that will never have that kind of stuff. And so if your faith or your theology is based upon that transaction between you and God, I think you're going to have a very rude awakening whenever something wrong happens in your life.
You're right, because you know what? I travel overseas. I speak at churches all over the world, and they look at it and like they're hardly the pastor's hardly making a living, and he looks at these guys that say, "Well, God blessed us because we have faith. We have all this wealth." Like, no, but then I have to let the people who are watching and listening. There's some great pastors, like I don't think John MacArthur, or Charles Stanley, or let's see, Chuck Swindoll, or these guys gonna spend the money, even though their books have much more sales than anybody else. They're not gonna be wearing those, a thousand. What do you think is a good good price for a pastor's shoes? Since
I,
you do this thing,
yeah, it's impossible for me to say a price tag, but I think the moment it becomes distracting, that's when you should reconsider uh, a pair of shoes or a pair of pants or whatever. Once the people coming to your congregation to hear you speak are asking questions about your appearance in a way that's consistent, I think you should at least try to hear that. And the posture should, I think, and we all should do this, but the posture should be, if you believe in Jesus and elevating him as a God actually worth worshiping, you should push completely to elevate him over yourself. Like John 3:30, if at any point you're elevating your own image where people are coming to your church to see you speak specifically, I think you should audit that, because building your personal brand as being a really good pastor or preacher is kind of counter to the whole point of being able to point people to the God that's actually worth worshiping.
and it's hard to preach good news and a gospel when you're trying to promote yourself. And just the way some of them is like, they're taking away the sin part out of their gospel. And you always look at those people, and they're always dressed very nice, and they have the expensive stuff. I mean, all you have to do is look at their clothes and then go into like, okay, they're not preaching the right thing. And yes, I'm judging people. I'm judging. I've listened to them, but thank God for Ben that's able to speak out on this and bring it out to light. And really, how can your book, like it says, take their faith more serious, allows people to take their faith more serious?
Yeah, to your point about the guys that kind of take the sin out of the
Gospel.
sermon, that the gospel, um, that is a very good way to grow a congregation. And we as consumer Christians have basically demanded that for years and years. We want a very comfortable service with really good music. We want to be motivated, not challenged. We want to leave feeling good and not feeling like we have to contend with some things in our lives. And that very quickly can turn into a recurring cycle of just feel good nothingness. And that basically, to me, makes your faith seem. Sorry, I've got these two dogs that
No,
will
that's
laugh
fine.
if a leaf falls. Um, Very quickly, that type of service, that type of gospel, turns your faith into basically a once a week social club where you're going to this cool church on Sunday. Maybe you serve and volunteer, but uh, you want to make sure you look good. You want to be around other people that look good, and it doesn't really call you to anything. And so your faith can turn into like another, basically an Instagram faith where you're doing it for the image, or you're doing it to be associated with a group of people that look cool or look beautiful. And that bothers me for some reason, because it's just very hard to be really cool, really aligned with culture, really hip or whatever, and be genuinely uh, open and honest about what it means to follow Jesus. And if you lean too heavily on the side of just wanting to get motivated and go consume a good worship service, that's not really taking your faith seriously. And don't have a faith if you want to treat it like that, because you know if you're honest, you're in it to improve your own personal life, and that's not what we're called to. So
Right.
I'm hoping by people reading the book and wrestling some of the questions that I've got about how we do church now, they could learn like, oh, maybe I am not taking my faith, treating it with the reverence that it deserves. Like if you believe that you follow a God that literally created the entire universe, you should treat that pretty seriously, I think.
Right. Now, what is your MBA on?
I studied strategy and entrepreneurship.
Now, would you ever consider becoming a pastor?
Uh, Not unless God forced me to do it. I mean, it is such a like I've talked with tons and tons and tons of pastors and have gotten a very good look into what they go through, the irrational standards that are put on them, the my hounds again. I'm
No,
so sorry.
that's fine.
I'm so sorry.
I have a Vizsla.
Oh, those are pretty. Um,
Pretty loud.
pretty loud. It's a being a pastor is a really hard job, and it's a ridiculous ask of somebody to say, "Hey, be available pretty much 24/7. Lead a congregation that's always going to want more of you. Be paid if you're an average pastor. Be paid less than a Chick-fil-A manager, and also never take any breaks." And have to, show up to funerals and hospitals and all that kind of stuff whenever something bad happens. Like, dude, that's a hard calling. I appreciate that people are called to that. I hope that they're called to it in a way that is motivated by wanting to point people to Jesus and not building their own personal brand. Because if we're honest, if you want to sell a bunch of books, and I've learned this, become a pastor first. Because as you said earlier, you have a very nice embedded audience, and
Yes.
that's a pretty good way to sell books. And so I imagine most of these guys never signed up thinking that they could be hanging out with Justin Bieber and Drake, but somehow there's a system now where you can do that. And
Right.
I'm very much going to try to avoid being a pastor unless God literally tells me to do it.
Okay, I appreciate your time, and I knew you have an engagement in about 5 to 7 minutes.
Sure.
Would you just encourage my audience in those last moments, and then I wanna talk about how people can get a hold of you to have you speak at their church or events, and also about your book, how to get it.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead.
I guess I would one a challenge. I would challenge everybody out there to audit how you uh, curate your image online on social media. If you haven't thought about the heart behind why you post what you post, I think you should, and that includes your appearance. Now, again, don't be controlled by fear of other people, but also consider how you can serve strangers by the way you handle yourself online. An encouragement, I would say, it is my biggest encouragement for people is that it is okay to ask questions about hard topics to powerful people. And the only way we're going to improve collectively as a church body, a big C church body, is if we're real with each other and real about the situation, like real about the circumstances around why we do what we do at church. And so I would encourage everybody to ask more questions in good faith, but not shy away from questions that are hard. And because you might protect somebody from something, even like a high profile leader, if you're asking about something that nobody else around them is willing to ask, that could potentially serve them. But again, if you want others to be about it, you better be about it as well. And so audit your own life first, but then also don't be scared to ask questions.
You're right, and we need more people like you because you know what? God is big on accountability, and the pastors need accountability. Sometimes accountability is what they call an accountability group is those people that just love them and love everything they say
Right.
and would do anything for them, and that's not helpful. So I pray for more people like you, Ben, that's able to keep everybody, including us as comedians. I want someone to say, hey, that bit that you did was not appropriate, or it shouldn't be there. I'm okay with that. I want to
Mhm.
hear that because our goal, like you said, we want to honor God, not ourselves. Thank you for your time. How can people get a hold of you, book you in, or complain
Yeah,
about you?
it's mostly the
That's
latter.
more like
It's
it.
mostly the latter. Thanks for having me, Naz. This is fun. I
Oh,
appreciate your ministry. I was watching some of your videos before and was howling. And I think you're hilarious. And if people want to buy the book or check out what I've got going on, you can go to preachers, sneakers.com. That's got links to the podcast, which is also called the Preachers and Sneakers Podcast. You can check me out on Instagram at Preachers and Sneakers, and would love it if you bought the book. If you're interested in getting me to speak, a few people have asked me that already, which is very surprising, but very flattering as well.
honor.
I've got a tab on preachersandsneakers.com where you can put in a request for speaking, and then you'll probably be talking directly to me. So if you've got that. If you've got an event or something coming up, I'd be interested in being involved. Just shoot me a note there. And, or if you want to rebuke me, as most people want to do, you can do that as well.
Perfect. And also your podcast. That's awesome. That is wonderful. So I watch it. I'm like, well,
Thank
I'd
you.
like to be there sometime. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time and I appreciate it. And may God richly bless you and protect you and guard you, man.
Thank you,
All
Nazareth.
right.
Appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much. All right. Okay, well, thank you, Ben, for his time. I mean, it's so nice to be able to, that he gave us that time. He is a very busy man. He's always on podcasts and on interviews because the book is really, it's really, opening the eyes of so many people and the ones that already see this as a problem in the church that are able to go, wow, I'm not the only one that's doing that. So, really, I want to encourage you guys to check his podcast and his Instagram, Preachers and Sneakers. And you know what? If your pastor is like wearing $2,000, $3,000 shoes and stuff, I pray you go and talk to him about it. You're not judging. You're just saying, listen, this is might cause people to stumble. You're causing people to stumble. There's nothing wrong with being rich as a Christian. I know a lot of friends who are very wealthy from businesses and they give a lot to the ministry and they give a lot to the churches. Praise God for them. But once you say, I want to be a preacher, I want to be in the thing. And you know what? If you make good money and you're buying nice stuff or someone's giving you nice stuff, don't wear it on stage. Don't flaunt it on social media. Just keep it to yourself. There's people, and I always say the story that's it happened to me where one time I was at a restaurant and, I used to put pictures on Instagram. Remember we used to say, "Oh, wow." Instead of say I forgot to pray, we say, "Oh, I forgot to take a picture of my food before eating it." And when my Wi-Fi was down, I'm like I couldn't eat because I couldn't take a picture. Now, I'm just kidding. I'm giving an extreme, but I know people did that. They gave in the beginning, they on Instagram, or Facebook, they give you a picture of everything they're eating. And one time in a restaurant, I was in San Antonio, I think, with a comedian, and I finished doing a show, and we went to a restaurant, and my food came, and it wasn't that good. So I took a picture of it and said, not that good. And one of my fans, I don't know what country, it's a third world country. I don't know if it was in Africa or somewhere in India or something. And he said, "Thank God that you have a steak to eat or you have meat. I wish I can have that kind of food." And man, it was a slap on my face. I was like, "Oh Lord, forgive me. Oh Lord, forgive me." I just, and I stopped putting any pictures. And so I'm not saying, do it, but if you can afford to buy a $500 shoes, you know what? I hope you give 500 to the ministry before you do that, and then don't wear it on stage. I don't know what a $500 shoes look like. My shoes never go over 100. I'm not saying, oh, I'm better than you. No, but I'm not a pastor. I am ordained, but I'm not a pastor of a church and that to go to. But it's still you. You know, I don't know. I think when you really know the heart of Jesus, you really these things become not that important to you. It's funny how much you lose a lot of things you put value in. You lose the value the closer you get to the Lord, the closer you start, being in the Word and in prayer and all that. So just want to let you know. I want to talk to some of the people that are watching right now. I know we didn't have a chance, but Chris and Sarah and Amy and everybody, I'm sorry that we didn't go long enough with Ben because he had things to do. So want to encourage you to watch us tonight on Live with Naz at 8:30 p.m. if you need laughter, if you're stressed out. Um, I want to encourage you just come join us on Facebook and YouTube and just laugh with us for an hour. It will really make a difference for you. Also, we have a group of people that love the Lord that will pray for you, that will take in the last 7 minutes of our show after we laugh for almost an hour. We ask you for prayer requests, and I guarantee you there's people praying for you. People are praying for you, and that means a lot. All right. So, love you guys. I will see you tonight. And if you don't subscribe to our podcast, please do. And if you missed any of the podcasts, you can go back and watch them on laughterforallpodcast.com, laughterforallpodcast.com. And thank you so much, guys, and appreciate it. And have a great, great day. See you tonight. Goodbye.